Hi, and welcome to our short eye presentation using PROACTOnDemand. Today we're going to focus on a customer service RCA case study. Let's get started. Our problem in this case is a specialty plastics facility has experienced 9 customer complaints about small black particles in a material supplied by the chemical company. The product, used in consumer product applications including radios, telephones, toothbrushes, and toys, was sold in the form of small plastic pellets. An advocate assigned a team which did a thorough RCA and identified multiple causes. We're going to go through the RCA that team had done. Okay, let's take a look at this analysis and the way it was depicted using cause and effect relationships. The reason this analysis was done, or the event, was repeated customer complaints. If you recall, there were 9 for this specific issue. The black specks in the solvent shipment is the mode. This is a fact because they know that was occurring. So what we want to do now is to be able to look at how we were getting the black specks in the solvent shipment. Well, we have to look and explore by asking that question, what are the possibilities? The specks could come from manufacturing, they could come from storage, they could come from loading, and they could come from the tank truck that's making the delivery to the customer. So when you look at this from left to right, that's the path in which the material will flow. So let's take a look at these one at a time. Specks from manufacturing. How could we have had black specks from the manufacturing process? Ineffective filtering. Possibilities were that the pump impeller was rubbing and that we could have had corrosion from the manufacturing process. The evidence in these cases proved that it was not the pump impeller or the corrosion. You'll notice that these scales in the lower left-hand corner represent our confidence factors ranging from 0 to 5. A 0 means with the evidence we have, this is not true. A 5 means with the evidence we have, this is absolutely true. So we're going to follow the things that prove to be true. How could I have had ineffective filtering? With the label on here, this being a physical route or observable. No filter was in the process line. This is a human route. There was a decision not to put a filter in this process line, so now we want to switch our questioning to, well, why would we have made that decision? There were financial constraints, a press on money, that viewed this as not a high priority in the context of the money that they had in their budget. So because this was not viewed as a high priority, the filter was chosen not to be put in the line. This resulted in ineffective filtering, which caused the specs from manufacturing to be included. Okay, now, had we just followed a path of linear logic and said, well, this is the only thing that we found, we know this to be true, we could have left it at that and went ahead and put in recommendations to put the filter in the line. But then we would have been blinded by the possibility that things were happening in parallel in this particular case. So we continue looking. Specs from storage, the way we store the pellets. How could we have had specs from storage? Specs entering through the vent, ineffective filtering in the storage area, or normal rust from the steel tank in which it was stored. Evidence proves in this case the specs were not coming through the vent, but the evidence did prove that, again, we have a filtering issue. Ineffective filtering. How could we have had ineffective filtering in the storage area? The filter was either not effective or no filter exists. So either we didn't have one at all or we had one and it wasn't working as intended. How could the filter not be effective? The cartridge was the wrong type for the small particles that it needed to filter. The cartridge was missing in the filter, and or the cartridges were dirty and or damaged. In this case, the cartridge was not missing, it was there, but it was not the right type for the particles that it needed to filter. So how could we have put in the wrong type of cartridge? The same cartridge was purchased, though the standards had changed for the process. So why did the same cartridge exist even though our standards changed? And we find out that we had no management of change process in the system which would have looked at the upstream and downstream effects of changing our standards for a given process. So as a result of not having this checks and balance system, we made a decision which did not include upgrading the support systems. Okay, the cartridges were dirty and or damaged. How could the cartridges have been dirty or damaged? The cartridges were not changed. Again, there was a decision not to change the cartridges, so we say why. No inspection was scheduled, and that was because there was no preventive maintenance process which would have required such an inspection. So these systemic issues, the LR or the latent roots, forced the decision to not change the filters because they weren't required, or the cartridges, and this resulted in the black specks being permitted to get into the storage process. Okay, we're going to collapse these, and notice when I collapse these for the use of space, that when we're presenting this to our executive management or whoever our review committees will be, what we want to be able to do is just keep the train of thought and the eye on what we're talking about so that they don't wander reading the rest of the tree and that's not what you're talking about. Specs from loading. The loading area was looked at and found not to be a contributor of the black specks in this case. Then we moved on to the specs from the tank truck. How could we have had black specks coming in from the tank truck? The trucks were not being cleaned and the specs were missed during the inspections. How could the trucks not be cleaned? Again, we look at there was either a procedure in place that was not adequate or there was an adequate procedure which was not being followed. In this case, there was a procedure, it was adequate, it was not being followed. Why would someone who knows what the procedure is not follow it? There was no check system by the truck cleaning firm, so there was no oversight in this case. And when people get backed up, they don't have enough manning, the schedules put more load, then whenever we're time pressured, we're going to take a shortcut. So that we did not follow the procedure in this case, and there was no checks and balance in terms of oversight to be able to detect that. Okay, the specs were missed during the inspection. Why were they missed during the inspection? The inspector did not follow the procedure, and the truck was not inspected. Why wouldn't we follow the procedure? We were hurried from a backlog of trucks, and this was due to the trucks not being scheduled properly. Again, we had an uneven load where the number of trucks per inspector was too much for that one inspector, so we start to take shortcuts. The trucks were not inspected due to reduced work hours for the inspectors, and the reason we reduced those work hours was to reduce cost. So the effect of reducing cost was allowing us to was actually allowing the specs to be able to get in via the tank truck process. So if we look at this in total now, we'll go back up here and we'll center the tree, and we'll go to display options, and we will expand all. What we can learn from this now is that we can put a path to failure, and we can now see the effect that systemic issues, things with our policies, our procedures, our practices, and our habits, contribute to our providing information for us to make a better decision. When these systems are flawed, we make a bad decision. As a result of that bad decision, we trigger physical or observable consequences to occur. And using this type of approach to tell our story, if you will, we can follow this all the way up until we get to the problem at hand. So this is an excellent way to be able to graphically and quickly depict what happened in a particular event when we have to convey it to a review committee of some sort where we're going to have to ask for money to fix things. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint now, and let's look at the results of this particular issue in this particular RCA. In a 3-year period, the company had nearly halved the level of customer complaints since the time the Corporate Complaint Reduction Initiative had started. Benefits included improved customer satisfaction, increased sales, reduced waste, and lower cost. In other words, several $1 million in savings had been realized. While the significant reductions in the number of customer complaints and bottom-line benefits were accomplishments in themselves, other invaluable indirect pluses occurred when the RCA training and processes spread to other functions. Finally, the value of the company's enhanced reputation has been priceless. The company's customers have appreciated being part of the RCA process. They witnessed a disciplined, unbiased approach based on facts and not assumptions or hearsay. Because the company and its suppliers work together, there is supplier buy-in, and the company's business relationships with its suppliers grew stronger. There is also internal buy-in, which has led to enhanced internal relations, particularly between manufacturing and the maintenance operations. This concludes our short presentation on the customer service case study. Thank you for your time. If you'd like more information on our PROACT offerings, please visit www.reliability.com. If you would like to download a copy of the article featuring this success, please click on the icon below. If you're interested in a live online demonstration, please contact our John Bartlow at 1-800-457-0645. I thank you for your time.